Welcome to In the Garage with David Andres. I am Andres.
I am Dave.
And today, David, what are we talking about?
I'm very excited.
All right.
Because today's topic, I think both of us, it's going to really be impactful for you with your knowledge of history and looking big picture things, and working in the private sector like you did. Me with my kind of own history and working with people and then my own family shit growing up a certain way. We're going to talk about how money and making money affects men's mental health.
Okay.
So big picture, I want to start at the beginning, like Genesis,
Okay.
like beginning shit. When we talk about money, really I like to talk about, well, what does the money kind of give you over the course of time? So back in the day, if we back up 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, thousands of years ago, Sumeria, Egypt, these ancient civilizations, what was wealth to those people?
Basically, how much land you had,
Right.
and how much livestock you had on the land, or how much you could farm off of the land, and then how many people you employed to farm for you that then you could turn around and feed them. So then you were supporting them. To the masochists, so how many wives you had, I guess that was something you wanted more of.
Well, and even, it's funny, you talk about land, and then eventually there was also like actual commodities like gold, right? Because you needed it to trade. Or if it was food, it was for trade. I look at the history of that, and I also see like, well, you have the haves and you have a lot of the have-nots. That's not new. I have to remind people when it comes to money and when it comes to all these ideas, and we'll get into, and topics like, being the breadwinner, keeping up with other people, economic instability and insecurity. I'm sure 1,000 years ago, if people weren't having enough food for their family, they felt anxious.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, because there weren't supermarkets, right?
Right.
You either had enough to eat or you didn't. And once again, wealth was kind of dictated by how much extra you had to eat. That's why, like, if you were fat back then, you weren't out of shape. You were sitting pretty because you could eat that much to get fat. Like that was a thing.
And most civilizations were not socialistic. They weren't believing like, well, my crops did really well this year and yours didn't. I'm going to share what I have with you so you guys don't starve.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pay me because you didn't make any money on your crops. So I'll give you my extra. And then if the same thing happens to me in the future, you'll give me your extra. And we'll just make sure none of us starve.
Yeah. No, that didn't happen.
No. And then it's funny, I work with, we talk about working with like the younger people. They'll ask me like, well, isn't that stupid? A lot of the younger people love the ideas of like democratic socialism and more of like communism, collective type thinking. Like, that's not how humans work. Like, most humans, when they want to get more. They don't think, I have just enough to survive, I'm going to give away the rest.
Correct.
Right. So I think we have to think of this in terms of our reality, a lot of what's affecting men, I think now, which is different now than in the past. There's always been this kind of worry of, I have to have enough. If it's not money, well, what is the money for? I have to make enough or earn enough to take care of the people around me, to take care of myself. And in case something happens, I'm not going to end up, I mean, it wasn't homeless back then, but like sleeping in a fucking barn with no food, and hopefully I don't starve. And maybe I could go to the church if they're giving out alms, or I can ask people for loans or whatever else. Where now, you fast forward a bit, you have the keeping up with the Joneses, which I think is a new-ish phenomenon. It's been around, but I don't think it was as much like a couple hundred years ago, because the different status that people have, you were kind of fixed in it. And it wasn't, well, I'm going to be king one day. Like, you're not going to be king one day. Like, you're a fucking peasant. And you're going to stay a peasant. Maybe you can be a peasant that doesn't starve.
Yeah.
Where the research and everything, it keeps pointing over and over, like the algorithms, and we talk about this online, and the things that you can own or buy, it shows your wealth, which in turn shows your status, importance, and power.
And so, that's the foundation of like the French Revolution, basically, was that you had this whole people at the top of what they call the third estate, right?
Mhm.
And that was the people that weren't noble and they weren't the clerical class, right? First estate was priests and whatnot, bishops. Second estate was the nobility.
Mhm.
So, the king is at the top of that. And it was getting to the point where the top of the third estate, the gentry, the regular people, were richer than the majority of the second estate, but they had no rights like the second estate did. The second estate, didn't have to pay taxes on shit. And every time the king needed favors or needed more money, then they got less taxes or had less taxes to pay. So, the French Revolution started from like these kind of rich lawyers and doctors going, hey, this is kind of bullshit that we have all this money, but we have to pay all the taxes and we don't get to like hold the nice positions in government like the nobles do. And those fuckers are like asking us for money. And that's kind of where this can go if we don't like keep an eye on it, because everyone's always looking to see who's doing better than them
Yeah.
and seeing what they can or cannot do to kind of improve their station. And eventually, if there's no other alternative, then, you go revolution, baby.
The reason I bring it up, it's because I think it helps guys, especially the younger ones. And I was looking at the data and showing like, well, where's a lot of this financial insecurity and the different age groups based around? So the younger ones, it's based like, well, I have to find a job, right? I have to be able to pay for rent, pay for a car, pay for insurance. Not worried about kids yet because they're not there yet. So it's really, I have to like be able to afford things for me. And as they got older, as people get older, the next generation like ours, it's, well, I have to make enough to like fucking feed my family and keep a roof over our heads and take care of their medical bills and, just the basics, keep the lights on, and everything's expensive. Cars, car insurance, gas, blah, blah, blah. And the older generation was more, well, we're living longer. I have to have enough money to make it to 90. So if I retire at 65 or 67 or 70, I'm not getting enough in Social Security in my retirement to live the way I want
Right.
for the next 20, 25 years, because there's going to be medical shit that happens. And I want to like enjoy myself. So a lot of the anxiety is based around that. What wraps into all of it now that's different than then is that comparison, a little bit of that shame, embarrassment. I hear guys talk about it now. I heard it yesterday. I was with a 21-year-old that he wants to be a teacher, right? And he wants to teach abroad. He wants to be able to travel the world.
Okay.
So he wants to take like teaching positions in, the Middle East or Asia or Europe. His friends are already giving him shit. Like, you're not going to make any fucking money. Like, how are you going to have a family? How are you going to whatever? Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. Especially because like that should be a position that gives you a living wage, right?
Right.
Not necessarily civil servants, but like people in those kind of working class, like the teachers, like not doctors, like police officers, firefighters, first responders, right? Like these guys, they have to fudge the system in a way to get the money that they need to live comfortably. And then eventually, like it works out for them. But yeah, the first few years of what they're doing is basically living in poverty. Like at this point, a teacher probably has to like live with their parents for a while until they like get to a point of like tenure, or they can kind of go to a different position where they get paid more.
And the difference, and it's perfect that the two of us are talking about this for men versus women, is there's still that idea societally, culturally, that men should be the breadwinner
Mm.
and the family. Men should make more than the women. Where you have two guys right here where I make more than my wife, your wife makes more than you.
Mhm.
Right. My wife at one point was making more than me because I was in grad school. There's research that I've read, they were doing some studies. It's first world countries, it's civilized or industrialized countries. So if it's Canada or Northern Europe or England or whatever, or America, it still was like when they compared the men and women, when men were not the breadwinners, their rates of depression went up. When women were not the breadwinners, it stayed the same.
That makes sense. I don't know if it's necessarily biological, but at the same time, it is kind of ingrained. So, there is a kind of genetic memory that goes along with, the cultures in especially Western cultures, that we were the bigger guys, we were the hunters, and we were the ones that needed to provide and keep our family safe. While,
Right.
the women were busy popping out kids.
Right. So again, back to like another podcast, role of provider. And I think it'd be good for us to share. Like, I know when I had kids, it was the same time I started working for myself. So I was only getting paid if I got myself work. There was no paycheck. I was so riddled with anxiety that I had to make a certain amount each month to pay for our mortgage and our insurance and the food and whatever else. That, I mean, at times it was crippling. I would stay up at night just freaking out. I went the route of a lot of guys do. I overdid it.
Mhm.
I would work 12 hours a day. If I didn't get a call for 3 hours for like a new client or something, I'd start freaking out. And then I'd cold call people and pretty much like push myself on people. You should hire me to do this. Thank God, like, I'm aggressively friendly. Like, I'm going to make you fucking talk to me whether you want to or not. But over time, that pattern led to a lot of self-destruction. We're just push, push, push. And it was all about that economic anxiety. My worry was a lot of, okay, I'm doing okay now. That might not last. I have to keep my foot on the pedal because it could drop off at any second. What was your kind of feeling like when you started having kids, when it came to like, okay, I have to earn a certain amount, or were you not that worried about it?
I wasn't that worried about it until I got laid off. And then because at that point, my wife hadn't started the upward mobility. She had just kind of come in at the ground floor doing software sales, and it's funny because it was a gig that, one, she was like by far the youngest person doing it, but two, the elements in place around her getting that gig were amazing. And the fact that the elements in place that happened for her to succeed in that role were also just so coincidentally good that it helped with the anxiety, right? It was like, okay, well, Jesus, like, this is, you don't really believe things are fated to be, but like, what had happened was she got put up to interview for this role because I went to our mutual friend's bachelor party, and at that bachelor party, the only non-lawyers were myself and his older brother, who was working on this particular sales team. And so we were talking about, just being computer guys and whatnot. And I was explaining to him how like my wife was working with one of their products, and he was like, "Oh my God, we need someone that knows how to work with the product but can sell. And I was like, well, she doesn't want to be a salesperson, but literally like every word that comes out of her mouth is a sales pitch. So I think, yeah, why don't you meet her at the wedding and see what, take it from there. So, long story short, she got the gig. And so then she's on this team, and on this team, like now it's, sink or swim. Like nobody's going to take time out of their day, because these guys, we talk about anxiety, like the way they lived was so far beyond their means that basically they would they would paint themselves into a corner at the beginning of the year and like take out like a third mortgage on their house,
Wow.
wagering that they're going to be able to pay that back by the end of the year with their sales. And so like,
It's like
these guys had a lifestyle that they wanted to lead. And so like that, at the start of the year, like they fucking hang this albatross around their neck, and they're just hustling the rest of the year to try to, pay that off or else. Right. And so like, she's struggling to learn the ins and outs of selling to the federal government, which is completely different than like selling to any kind of private organization.
Yeah.
And, she was like struggling with the fact that like, the team wasn't as supportive and helpful in teaching her things. Right. And her boss was this insane lady who, just basically believed in trial by fire with everything. And if you fucked up, then she was just going to yell at you for fucking up, not
All right.
teach you much. But what wound up happening was this guy on the team that was being kind of a pain in the ass to her wound up being the older brother of this guy who was my team lead on a project that I had at my company.
Small world.
And we became close. And so, just through that connection and the fact that like out of nowhere, I happened to know this guy's younger brother, like he softened on her and then like helped, kind of mentor her, and like it helped her to rise up and succeed in her role. Right.
Were you getting, when it comes to just the money issue, was there any worry on your end? Like, oh shit, what if this doesn't work out? Or
there always was a bit of that, but we also learned early on, like even before she started seeing how these freaks were living, like not just they're like living, what do you call it? Commission to commission, that we wanted to live well below our means. We wanted to live to the point where we had, enough to squirrel away in case, shit happened. Right. And
I wish to pause you there just because I think that is not taught enough at all, to live below your means so you can put money away, versus the guys that decide to take out the third mortgage and then, all right, let's catch up and kill ourselves and stress out for the next 300 days.
Yeah. And, what was mind blowing about that is that in a federal sales cycle, like, they talk about sales cycles, and it typically can be a few months if you're selling to a company, right? They got to get approvals and contracts and everything like that. So it's not a quick process, but in the federal government, a sales cycle is 18 months. So you're working on something for a year, like whatever you start working on is not going to hit for at least a year and a half.
Yeah.
And if it happens to hit near budget time, it could just go right in the dumpster because that particular budget line item gets cut by Congress, right? So yeah, these guys were living a high stress life. Meanwhile, what we were earning, we could have easily like had a much larger house, nicer cars, all that stuff. But instead we were like, no, we want to live somewhere where we're comfortable, and we want to live in a place that is going to suit all our needs, right? We want to just kind of, when we get home, we want to feel kind of away from home or away from everything. And we want to be able to pay it off quicker than the 30-year mortgage or
Hmm.
whatever that we'd gotten. So yeah, instead we were just like, we wound up having just a ton of equity in this house over like the course of 8 years. We souped it up super nicely. We made on what we paid for. We made over, I guess, 100, I guess 50%. My math is shit, but it was like 50% over what we paid for it. We got back. I think that's right.
Sure.
Something like that. Anyway, and we were able, because we were living below our means when we found this house, like it wasn't a stretch for us to buy it because we still weren't overextending ourselves because we had the equity in the other place. So then we could buy this house and then still be comfortably like living along below our means.
I'll use the term, you weren't house broke.
Correct.
You didn't put every penny into your house every month and then had nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Which a lot, again, like I'm going to keep going back to the keeping up with the Joneses, the appearances, the nice car, the nice house. My kids go to the fancy private school. We go on the vacations. I find that when I work with the 18 to 25-year-olds, they're really taught more on, I have to make this amount, and it's, the economic uncertainty and the wealth gap and all this and that. And I always fall back on, well, what kind of life do you want to live? What's important to you? What are your values? Do you need the 3 houses with the fancy cars and the vacation and the beach house and the blah, blah? Like, do you need that to be happy? Like, really think about it. Do you need that to feel whole, at peace with your life? What's more important to you? And we've talked about it before. Like, one of the things I know last week, and people will hear it, like purpose and meaning. So a lot of them, it's great when they'll say, and it's funny how it happens when they're younger. It's amazing versus people twice their age. They'll say straight up, like, I just want to be able to afford like a little place, maybe a condo. I like to fish, so maybe a cheap little boat and like a cheap used car, and everything else is extra. Like, that's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Versus the ones that do say, well, I'm not driving a shit car. Like, I need a BMW or better. Or I'm only living on the beach.
Right. Well, you can do that and still live below your means.
You can, you can, but you have to know, like, all right, like when it comes to money, first of all, what's the point of, like, is it really going to make you happy? And they've, the one thing, they do the research over and over and over again, they find like even the rich people, plenty of them are not happy or satisfied with their lives, especially if there's like any disabilities, mental health issues, relationship issues. Absolutely. Where a lot of the stress comes in, and I wrote this down, it's, dependent on how you want to raise your family, how you yourself want to live, and what that partnership looks like if you have a spouse or a significant other. So have you and Diana ever talked about, like, this is how we want to live. This is how we want to kind of take care of our finances. This is how we're going to model for our kids how we earn or spend or save money. And if there's any issues, we're going to talk about it, not lie about it or hide from it.
Yeah. I mean, because we did so much traveling early on in our careers, we learned that the value of experiences over material objects, right? Material things. And that was definitely one of the benefits to it. I mean, you wind up with a weird sense of what it means to be, working and whatnot when you just live in hotels all your life. Um, but yeah, we prioritized having enough to make sure we were able to have the experiences that we wanted to have. And yeah, we talked about it quite extensively, right? Because admittedly, I am shit with money. Um, once we got together, it was basically like, all right, like I'm just going to put my paycheck in the bank. You kind of do with it whatever needs to happen. I'll take out money when I need it, and that's basically been our arrangement for the entirety of our marriage because she went to a business school. Like she
Yeah.
like the college that she went to like specializes in accounting. So like
But good for you for not pulling the kind of alpha male. Well, that's emasculating. Like, I'm not fucking putting you in charge of the money. Like,
oh, yeah.
right. Which is, I look at it as simple as strengths and weaknesses and who's better at what. And a partnership is a partnership where you decide. That's one thing my wife taught me. Like, I'm better at this. Guy or girl, doesn't matter. I'm better at this. I'm going to do this thing. You're really good at planning our vacations, right? You like it. You're good at it. I could give a fuck. I'm not going to look to save $10 on a hotel. I'm not looking at which route is easier for whatever. Like, no, I'm just whatever's kind of easier, I'm going to do. So it's great that you were able to recognize that early. Say, and I'll provide. Here's my paycheck. You're good at this. You do this. Because if you let me do this, it might not work out as well.
And it definitely comes from the fact that we both came from childhoods that where our parents were terrible with money. My parents were no good with money. I'm not even like they definitely went declared bankruptcy at one point.
Yeah.
They were always, it wasn't like paycheck to paycheck, but they definitely were, they overextended themselves all the time. And it was that kind of stress was like, it was palpable in the household
Yeah.
because like you could feel it as a kid. Like they're just like, when they say yes to you asking them for something, like you could almost feel how like they're doing math in their heads going, I don't know how that we're actually going to be able to pay for that. But, and so, you know, same with her, where her parents were constantly, she was sent to very nice private schools and, her parents were working class in a place that is very much not working class Connecticut. They just happen to be the working class folks, but they um, wanted to raise her amongst all these, kind of upscale people, maybe for the connections and whatnot,
Yeah.
for a kind of a leg up. But what she got out of it was how badly they had overextended themselves in life and that she was definitely never going to let that happen. So I think we had the same objective in mind, which
Yeah.
was that we never wanted to be like freaking out over money when it wasn't going to be necessary, right? And so it's like, yeah, we sent our kids to private school, but because of programs in place, they go for free. So,
Right.
if that was ever going to be a financial issue, I would have no problems pulling them out and sending them to public school.
Do you know what I find funny? And I hear it all the time, and you do too, probably, is, well, I want better for my kids than I had. I want to do more for my kids than I had. And I always ask parents, why? Why do you want to give your kids more? Why do you think in the long run it helps them? Well, your parents have been better off to teach you when you were younger and you asked for the thing. You know what? That's not in our budget. Let's figure something else out that we can do or that you can enjoy, whatever else. But we're trying to live within our means. So we're not too stressed as a family unit, because stress is like shit. It trickles down.
Need to eat more fiber, David, if it's trickling down.
Ha! That's good. I ate a lot of fiber, maybe too much. My parents were taken care of by my mom's parents financially. I don't know what the term is, not Nepo babies, but like the entitled ones, the ones like grandma and grandpa paid for everything.
Yeah.
My grandparents, that is, paid for everything. So they just kind of assumed this is always going to be here. So they spent and spent and spent. never changed their spending habits, equated happiness to spending. If I, and even if there's like a lot of people I know, and I wrote this down, like people with marital problems or relationship problems will think, well, if we go on a vacation, that'll make us happier. If we have a kid, without thinking like that's going to be expensive and stressful, it'll make us a better couple. If I buy her things, if I make more. I rarely see that work out. So what I saw, like you, I saw these two people go from like, wow, they had all this money that they were given, pissed it all away, made every wrong decision possible. I went the opposite way. Sometimes my wife will have to remind me, we can afford this. It's fine. No, but I need 6 months safety net just in case. Like, that's too much. Most people, they recommend maybe a 3-month. Let's compromise. So it's so funny when parents will say, well, I want to do more for my kids. I don't want to say no. Talking about that economic kind of anxiety of, oh, it makes me feel bad. It makes me feel ashamed or embarrassed or guilty to say, no, you can't go on the school trip that costs $3,000.
Yeah.
Where I have to then get with the parent. The kids usually get over it pretty quickly and they understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say to the parents, like, it's too bad it's taboo. My parents never spoke to me about money or like if they were struggling. Like still to this day, they won't share with people. Way too proud, way too ashamed to say, we can't go out with you tonight. We're on a budget and we can't go out 3 nights a week. Would never. It's unfortunate, but I wish more parents would say, like yours should have said to you, no, we can't. This doesn't fit within like our monthly spending, whatever else. We want to be smart about this. And then as you get older, they could teach you. You could say like, well, what? I don't understand. Like, how come you can't afford this? And it's just, I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I don't know if it's an American thing. I don't know if it's a generational thing where we just don't want to talk about it. Almost like sex or death. It's so just taboo to so many people.
It is because, it's kind of like, it's kind of like dick measuring, right? Like you might think that your dick is a good size and then like you find out that, oh no, everyone's got a bigger dick than you.
That's why I never measure or ask anyone. I just live in my own fantasy.
But that's it, right? It's like, people don't want to talk about it. Well, it's interesting because, this is a conversation I've had with my wife where like we don't talk about what we make. Like guys, we've known 30 years, I don't know what anybody makes.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of okay with that. What do I care? It's not my business.
Yeah.
And she says like women have no problems. Like women will openly talk about how much they're making, how much their household is making, like all the financial stuff. And, to your point about like men feeling the financial anxieties more than women, probably, that I think that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it, whereas apparently they do.
Well, with us, I think it becomes a comparison right away. It becomes, well, I'm not as good as Andres because he makes more than me. I'm not as masculine. I'm not as much of a provider. So it's that, again, that keeping up with whoever, that comparison, and then it turns into feelings of like anger, being ashamed.
Yeah. And I think that also comes from a lack of financial understanding. So a big deal was like in the military, right? I think my paycheck at the end was something like maybe $2,400 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with the tax-free kind of bonuses for housing, bonus for food, bonus for clothing, someone had kind of worked it out for me, and they were like, yeah, you're making probably like $30,000 a year. Okay. But what you take home and what you have to like worry about financially, you're in the same league as someone that makes like $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to pay for any of this stuff and it's all tax free. Like you're just being given this money.
I have to remind that to a lot of these young people that don't understand when they're watching YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and seeing these people with the wealth, and that's, that's the algorithm, right? They're not showing videos of, oh, let's follow this guy. He makes a little bit below what's considered middle class, but man, is he making a difference in people's lives. And he's really happy with his life and satisfied and has great relationships. Let's aspire to that. I don't think that's been a thing in our history. It's always aspiring to gain more. If it's 1,000 years ago, I want more land, or I want more resources, or wives, or peasants, serfs, whatever, slaves. All the way to now, it's I want more things, want more in the bank account, more stocks. So I have to remind them, you have no idea. First of all, this person might be, like we said before, house broke. Every penny they make goes into their house. They have no savings. They don't have kids. They don't have all these other expenses. You just see the one thing that's most valuable. So it might all be bullshit. The other thing they forget, or I have to remind them, you don't know what was fucking given to them. You don't know if that's mommy's and daddy's Bugatti, or if they won some settlement or lawsuit, or who knows. So don't look at it as, well, this person worked hard, therefore they were successful. I am not successful. I must not be working hard enough.
And to your point, I wish there was a good way to show that. I think the closest you can kind of come to like a middle class, like a working class hero is like Al Bundy, like Married with Children.
Yeah, right.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, he complains about being a shoe salesman, but he seems content to just be a fucking piece of shit shoe salesman. He's got a 2-story house in the Chicago suburbs. It's not cheap anymore.
No.
I think you put that house on the market today, it's probably like, a $600,000-$700,000 house. And I don't, things were different back then, but it is harder to show meaning, like purpose in life, without either sounding preachy, or sounding, like we're visual people. It's hard, like, to just walk up to people and just be like, hey, I know this guy. Like, I grew up in a big family. Like, I like to be surrounded by people.
Well, right. And that's what you need. Like, trust me, I'm in the same boat. If it was up to me, like, I'd always be around people all the time. I wish we could get to a point. I always say this, like, to anyone that happens to listen to this, people I work with, you want to get comfortable with sharing the things that are hard to share across the board, and know which people to do it with. You don't have to tell everyone, because I know that's a big stretch. But I wish we could get to a point where, like, I'm close enough with you. If you invited us on a vacation with you, where if we were having a tough time financially, I'd be able to say, you know what? We can't afford it right now. We're going through kind of like a tough spot with so-and-so getting sick, or we have to pay off this loan, or blah, blah, blah. Maybe, like, we can just, when you get back, we could do something a little, like, low key. I don't know many people that are comfortable saying that. Even with close friends, even with family, because of the feelings of either guilt, shame, embarrassment.
Yeah. But that's it, right? Is you don't want to feel like your dick isn't big enough.
Yeah. And it's too bad that that's the comparison. Like, why does what you make, or the money, or the wealth, or whatever, have to dictate who you are?
And in reality, what you can see, or what you will see from people who are just kind of chasing the material, chasing, keeping up with the Joneses and whatnot, is you go to their like nice house, or you go on their nice boat, and it's sterile, right? And there's no sense of like living in it, because all they care about is acquiring it and then getting more.
Yeah, it's a trophy.
Yeah. And, versus like you can tell when someone is happy where they are, like, or at least um, where money isn't the main driver. You go to their house and it reflects what their almost reflects what their values are, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like you come here and it's like it's a modest house, but we like the fact that we get an ocean breeze. We wanted a pool, and we want a yard for dogs to run around in, and that's it. If we had to, we move further west. Start figuring out like, okay, what do we need to sacrifice? I guess the ocean breeze, or what don't we want to sacrifice? To have like you know to get to something else that we need, but it's never like because we feel that we don't have enough.
I break it into two categories of, can we prevent that financial anxiety and how the money can affect your mental health and well-being? And if you're already there, what can we do now? So the prevention piece is always easier, right? It's almost like drug use and abuse. And like once you're an addict, it's very tough to get off. It's easier to prevent it, like have all these good things in place. The prevention piece here would be like, if you are younger, really identify, like learn how to make a budget. And like you said, live under your means and kind of create your own almost list of what are the most important things to me, the kind of like, what do I need to have? What would be nice to have? What do I definitely not give a shit about? And if you have a partner, live with someone, you need to talk about that in the beginning.
Mhm.
If you two aren't on the same page, it's going to be really tough. I grew up in a house where the fights were only about two things. It was either one parent's weight or money. That's it. That's all I heard of 18 years of being in that house. And even still now, same fight. 30 years later, the same fight. When I hear people out, or I talk to families sometimes, or if I'm working with young people and they're dating, or I have a few young adults I work with now in their 20s or early 30s. And we have to really, it's funny how many don't do that. Like, did you ever talk to your partner and say, listen, I don't want to go out to dinner every night in Fort Lauderdale. Like that gets expensive. I'd rather us cook at home 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and then that money could go towards the vacation we want to do. Or on the flip side, when it's even that, I don't want to waste my money on a vacation I hate. I don't want to sit on the beach for 3 days. That's boring to me.
Right.
So let's compromise. Let's talk about that's not worth the money that I'm making.
Hmm.
That's kind of the prevention piece. Once you're already there and you're just wrapped up in it, or you're anxious about the next paycheck and everything else. We live in a capitalistic society. So one thing I always tell people to do is like learn how to be smart with money. Like anywhere you can get it, find experts, learn, talk about it, ask friends. My the same kid I was with, he's like 21. He was talking to me yesterday. One of his best friends, like your wife, is in school for like business and accounting. He eats lunch with him every week. He's become like his advisor. The kid now he's 21. He works his job. He works like at a restaurant. He's got like almost 20 grand saved up in the market for a 21-year-old about to graduate. Like that, I was telling him like, that's better than like probably 90% of the people your age. Really? You think so? I'm like, yes, because you've been smart with it. You were okay asking your friend, yeah, I don't know what to do with this money. Like, I don't want to spend it all. Like, what should I do?
Yeah.
And he's just been investing it. If he didn't do that, it'd be under his fucking mattress right now, and it would be a third of that money.
So I think, part of it, and I think also part of what causes the anxiety is also being comfortable with who you are as a person, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're not necessarily comfortable with who you are, you supplement that with things.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. My dresser, like, is a hand-me-down from my wife's grandfather, I think. This thing is like almost 100 years old, it's not like it's a antique in a way that's valuable. It's just an antique in a way of something is old, but like it looks fine. Falls apart every now and then, and I have to kind of like put it back together.
Sure.
Um, and some people would feel very pressured to like get something new,
Hmm.
but to me, like that's not a priority. Like,
Yeah.
it's a nice to have maybe, but like it just does the job. Like there's nothing that's going to make me feel better about myself by having a new dresser, right?
I like to, when I get guys that come in and they bring that up, I ask them very simply, I'm like, is this something you need or is this something you want and why?
Mm,
Very easy. Do you need a new dresser? No. Why? Still works. Okay.
yeah. But you're not wrapping your identity around like
No?
showing people like, yeah, no, this is the latest dresser, you're not going Patrick Bate. Like that's where you wind up, right? You wind up as Patrick Bateman from fucking
You
American
wind up
Psycho.
as Patrick fucking Bateman. God, that is terrifying.
I mean, but that's it, right? That's the whole crux of not feeling okay in your own skin.
Yeah.
Um, I think the last kind of splurge that I made was the effects pedal that I bought for when we were like playing all the shows and whatnot, because like I had on a bunch of different pedals out of rack and it was starting to get unwieldy and start to sound all sorts of fucked up. And I was like, you know what? I happen to win fantasy football. This is splurge money.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy an effects pedal because the last time I won fantasy football, I splurged and got a new guitar. Like my other guitars, other than the one behind me, like that was a gift maybe 15 years ago. Everything else are guitars that I've had since I was a kid. And it's like I never necessarily felt like I needed a new one because I don't wrap myself around my identity around like, yes, no, I need the most perfect sounding guitar. I need these tones to be crisp. You know what? Get new strings.
Or the guys that do it with the car,
Mhm.
right? That became a thing in the last 50 years that like your car's your identity. Your car's your identity? Like your Acura Integra is like it defines you? Like I don't understand. Like it's one thing like it brings you joy, you can afford it. You want to buy the whatever and add things to it and like you really love it, it's your hobby. Cool if you can afford it. But don't blur the line too much of like, well, if I didn't have this, I'd have no worth or meaning.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something you like. Your guitar is something you like. You like your guitar. If you didn't have your guitar, you'd still have the people in your life. You still are who you are. So I have to, I always, and I do it with myself. Like my reflection, I know my own anxiety is always there needs to be enough in the reserves because I've seen firsthand what happens if they're not. So my worry is always like, oh my God, we have nothing left. We have to sell our house. The kids can't do anything extra they want to do, which again is like they'd be fine, but it's my own shit. And I'd feel like a failure because I went from like one kind of strata in the social economic stratosphere to one lower than it.
Hmm.
Doesn't change me, won't change my friendships, doesn't change my values or my morals, but I find myself doing it sometimes and I have to stop and like thank God my wife will remind me like you're spiraling, like you're being irrational. Like that's anxiety, that's not logic.
Mm. Yeah. Um, but I get it. I get some of that is, you know, once again, like sort of genetically imprinted, right? Like where I grew up in Illinois, we happened to be like the very small corner of very small working class corner of basically a larger school district where everybody else was well off. These were like the people that made lots of money in the city. And it was, a really nice school as a result because the school, like the community like was able to put in for that particular school. But
Mhm.
what wound up happening was that my friends lived in these massive houses, and I could never quite understand, why I didn't live in a house that big. And it was like kind of, you know, sometimes at first I didn't think about it until like I got a little bit older where like I'd have friends sleep over, and then I started thinking to myself like, man, what must it be like for their parents to drop them off at my like little house in this shit street, coming from like their giant mansion over.
Tell them to make sure, like, check the sheets and wash your hands.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know where we're leaving you.
Yeah. And it's like, so I grew up with that kind of chip on my shoulder, but I was able to take it and sort of funnel it into not really a mantra, but like an ethos, right? Like,
Yeah.
so basically what I told my wife when we were looking at schools for the kids, I was like, I want them to go to school where they're not the richest and they're not the poorest kids.
Yeah.
I want them to be like right in the middle. I want, I want it to be so that they don't necessarily, they're not constantly looking at what everyone else has and feeling like they have less, or like knowing that they have less. And we nailed it with this particular school where it's like, there's cops, a lot of cops send their kids there. And then a lot of like, business owners from the community send their kids there, and they can afford to like donate all this money to the school and
Yeah.
whatnot. And it's like the nice, perfect balance where like when people come here, they're not going, ooh, like this is where you live. And they're not also going like feeling intimidated by coming here. Um, and that's a sweet spot. That's where you want to be, right?
It's a great lesson to kind of bring this all home, if I can say. Because a lot of what we're doing, if we have kids, we're modeling for our kids. Like, what are we teaching them?
Mhm.
Right? Them being at the school with all different types of kids where they're not the richest, they're not the poorest. They get to see both ends of it. They get to kind of experience different social economic status and what it's like, and go into those kids' houses and vice versa. We get to also, hopefully, as they get older, you talk to them about it and you teach them, because that's ultimately the goal. Like, if you have kids, the other part too that I think is really great, us kind of bringing this about is, and talking about it, is we live in a capitalistic society. This is not going away, but it's not new. The haves and the have-nots, and the haves wanting more and the have-nots just wanting to get by and maybe more. That's not new. So you have to be very smart and don't get seduced by all the stuff you see online and you hear, and like, it's all like everything you see and hear, it's usually generated to make money. Like health insurance companies, their job's to make money, not to save your life.
Mm.
That's just a byproduct of what they're selling. That's the doctor's job is to save your life. Their job's to make money. So one thing I always talk to the people I work with, that 18 to 35-year-old groups, like, you have to look at this with a very strategic mind. It can't be emotion based. If it's emotion based and I'm going to buy because it makes me feel good, or I feel bad because I don't make enough, you're not going to make the right decisions. You have to be thoughtful. You have to be objective. This is our system. If you're smart with it, like you said, you live below your means. You know how to maybe find the school and find like, oh, with grants and other stuff, it's free.
Mhm.
Then you're going to be okay. But if you're just caught up in that, I need to make more, or I'm tying my worth as a man to how much I make, it doesn't work. I've never seen it work where, yeah, I finally make 6 figures now. Now I'm happy. Now I'm at peace. I can live the next 40 years of my life with a breath of fresh air and relief. It's always, now I'm making 6 figures. Let's see if I could double it.
Yep.
Right? Because you will, and they've done studies on this. I brought this up. I think it was a Harvard study years ago. They found the difference in people making money, and I've said this before, like that's between like, I think at the time it was like 70,000 and 100 and something thousand. There was no difference in their overall satisfaction with life and happiness. Once you're making like something ridiculous, it was okay. Now you can afford private jets and this, that, whatever. But if you're like, way above the poverty line to some other like whatever data set is, you'll find money to spend that on. You're still going to be living kind of paycheck to paycheck because now your kids go to the private school. Your car payment is $100 or $200 more a month. Your mortgage went up a little because you moved. You're going on the one extra vacation, and now that becomes you're not living under your means, you're living at your means.
Yeah.
But to be able to live under your means, like you said, you better be pretty comfortable with yourself. Because if you're not, like you said, you will fall into the trap of tying your worth to things and what you can afford and do, not who you are.
Absolutely. And I think we touched on it last week about how corporations, like you said, are in it to make money. And the net result of these corporations just being in it to make more money for the shareholders is what? Everybody is miserable. They're miserable working there.
Yeah.
They're causing misery in what they have to do to make more money. You were saying before the podcast, Cisco went up. Why? Because they cut how many jobs?
Like 1,700 jobs or something.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that can be used as almost an example of why you don't want to necessarily, like, capitalism's fine, but you don't necessarily want to buy into the give me more money at all costs, because what happens when you make money at all costs is like everyone around you is going to be fucking miserable.
Oh, it's capitalism on steroids. It's hyper capitalism, which anything of too much, you swing too much any direction, it's not going to work. I have to remind these people what life was like in the 60s and 70s when it came to taxes in the middle class, or you read a lot about history, how the middle class boomed after World War II, right? And like, how did that come about? And kind of remind them, like, that's all most people wanted. Like, that was the goal, to have like the house and the 2 kids and the car and a steady job. That was fucking paradise.
Yeah.
Right? And reorienting yourself to really sticking to the basics. And one thing another little pearl that I love to use when it comes to sales and when it comes to the world of people and business, they always say a person's going to remember how you made them feel more than what you gave them or what you have.
Okay.
That's what they remember. They might not remember what you said. They'll remember how you made them feel. That's value. That's worth. So my parents will always ask, what can we get the kids? What can we get the kids? Like, save your money, please. You want to do something meaningful? Take them with you when you do this thing and include them. Or show up to the next time there's this like assembly for some recognition. Show up and like clap really loud, and they'll be really excited and happy and feel like it's momentous.
Mm-hmm.
I always would joke with them, write a meaningful note. That's more valuable than you bringing God knows what, like a gift card.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of guys, we forget that. Especially the young ones. I have to buy her this. I have to pay for this. I have to make sure I can afford this. I'm a loser if I can't do that. Like, that says who?
Yeah.
The manosphere. That's who says who, right? That's about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess to put it even more bluntly, David, it's not the size of your dick, it's how you use it.
That's it. That should be the title of this episode, right? We all have dicks. And we could figure out how to work them well. We can work with what we've got.
Sure.
And I'm going to live under my means when it comes to that.
I mean, I've got 2 kids.
Right.
So it worked.
I'm not going to outkit my coverage. I know what my wheelhouse is. I'm not going to decide like, that's it. I'm dropping the family. We're going to porn. We're going to have Dave's OnlyFans page.
I'd still like a Dave's Only fan page.
Sure. But it'd be really boring. It'd be like me coming up with like weird drum beats or, hey, here's me playing basketball for an hour by myself. That's about it.
I don't know if my feet are attractive or not, but you know, I'll just take pictures of my feet.
Somebody would probably find them attractive. But I'm really glad we talked about this topic. I have a feeling these types of topics and little points within it are going to keep coming up over and over because this is human nature. You know, a lot of this, it's survival more than just like economic anxiety.
Absolutely. I look at these as kind of macro topics that we can always drill into because this is a problem with men's mental health. You know, it's one way or the other. Like you're always looking to other people to measure yourself. And if you're not okay with yourself, you are not going to feel good about what your outcome is when you measure up against somebody else.
Yeah. Wonderful. So thank you so much for indulging me in this topic.
Sure.
And we will be back next week with another episode of In the Garage. If people want to get in touch with us, how do you recommend they do so?
Thank you for asking, David. It's been so long since I've done this. I usually just kind of attach it in post.
Love to put you on the spot.
You can reach us at our Substack, In the Garage with David Andres at substack.com, where we post these podcasts as well as sometimes interviews, or you've been quite busy sliding into people's DMs from our thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can email us with any topics you might want to hear, or just any questions or comments you might have at In the Garage with D and A. That's all one word. In the Garage with D and A at gmail.com. Other than that,
also on Spotify and I believe Apple Music.
Yes, you can get this podcast where all fine podcasts are downloaded, or at least at Apple and Spotify, and YouTube. These things get posted to YouTube as well.
And Instagram now.
Oh shit.
Yep.
Okay.
I have an Instagram page for us and have been uploading there too.
Okay. All right.
So you can find us anywhere. We have a digital footprint.
Yeah, big enough that we get guests sometimes.
Right. But thank you. Have a great week.
All right, you too then.